من فظلتم تفكهون إنا لمغرمون بل نحن محرومون أفرأيتم الماء الذي تشربون أأنتم أنزلتموه من المزن أم نحن المنزلون لو نشاء جعلناه أجاجا فلولا تشكرون أفرأيتم النار التي تورون أأنتم أنشأتم شجرتها أم نحن المنشئون نحن جعلناها تذكرة ومتاعا للمقوين فسبح باسم ربك العظيم فلا أقسم بمواقع النجوم وإنه لقسم لو تعلمون عظيم إنه لقرآن كريم في كتاب مكنون لا يمسه إلا المطهرون تنزيل من رب العالمين أفبهذا الحديث أنتم مدهنون وتجعلون رزقكم أنكم تكذبون فلولا إذا بلغت الحلقوم وأنتم حينئذ تنظرون ونحن أقرب إليه منكم ولكن لا تبصرون فلولا إن كنتم غير مدينين ترجعونها إن كنتم صادقين فأما إن كان من المقربين فروح وريحان وجنة نعيم وأما إن كان من أصحاب اليمين فسلام لك من أصحاب اليمين وأما إن كان من المكذبين الضالين فنزل من حميم وتصلية جحيم إن هذا لهو حق اليقين فسبح باسم ربك العظيم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا وقعت الواقعة ليس لوقعتها كاذبة خافضة رافعة إذا رجت الأرض رجا وبست الجبال بسا فكانت هباء منبثا وكنتم أزواجا ثلاثة فأصحاب الميمنة ما أصحاب الميمنة وأصحاب المشأمة ما أصحاب.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Dear Shaykh Usama, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'd like to welcome everyone to another one of our Friday night programs. Inshallah, to start our program off, I would like to welcome our dear brother Ali Abbas for some recitation from the Holy Quran. Please help me welcome him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولله ملك السماوات والأرض والله على كل شيء قدير. إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب. الذين يذكرون الله الذين يذكرون الله الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك 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 فقنا عذاب النار ربنا إنك من تدخل النار فقد أخزيته وما للظالمين من أنصار ربنا إننا سمعنا مناديا ينادي للإيمان أن آمنوا بربكم فآمنا ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار ربنا وآتنا ما وعدتنا على رسلك ولا تخزنا يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد
Ahsant, our dear brother, please another loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Dear Shaykh Usama, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'd like to welcome everybody once again for our Friday night programs, inshallah, where we are going over reclaiming the narrative with Shaykh Usama. And I would like to also congratulate you all on the anniversary of the Islamic Revolution. Inshallah, if we could all recite a loud salawat. Allahumma Inshallah, we'll have a few announcements. We'll watch a small clip, and then inshallah, we'll welcome Shaykh. We just wanted to remind everyone and let everybody know our next program will be on March 3rd, and we will continue the Reclaiming the Narrative lectures with Shaykh. Please stay tuned on our WhatsApp and social media channels for any other events or upcoming functions. We do have Reclaiming the Narrative and as well as many other books in the library in the back, so please feel free to look at that. And then we also wanted to remind parents and make sure that everybody knows that Hadi Institute and the programs here is a welcoming, and we are very proud how many youth attend the programs, and inshallah we continue to want to see them at all the programs. Because inshallah we are going to break bread together and there's a dinner today, the gym is available for the youth if they want to, if the parents want to go with the youth to make sure they're safe. They could go there if they need some more room to run around or to let off some air. Please feel free to go down with them. We want to make sure that the children have their freedom in these first 7 years to, inshallah, when they are 7 years, they'll be ready to actually be in the lecture and stay through a full lecture. So inshallah, we're going to work with them and we're going to help them and we're going to train them, inshallah, and help them in every way we can. So the gym is open for that, inshallah. There is question and answers at the end of the program after Shaykh's lecture. So I'm going to, inshallah, say the number. If anybody wants to, I'll give everybody a minute to pull out their phones if they want to write the number. So during the lectures, if you have any questions, you could text this number, 313-355-0832. Again, 313-355-0832. Inshallah, we'll first watch the clip, and directly after that, Shaykh will join us, inshallah. Please recite aloud, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
این همه دعوت شدد که به کس دیگری غیر خدا متشبث نشید برای اینکه شما تذریف کنن قوت را که شما یک پشتوانه عظیم دارید و او خداست.
عظم الخالق في أنفسهم فصغر ما دونه في أعينهم. The blood of Karbala is within us, and we will not bow except for Allah. O Spirit of God, we are alive again, and it's only a matter of time until we bring all tyranny to its knees. ألا وإن الداعي ابن الداعي قد ركز بين اثنتين، بين السلة والذلة، وهيهات من الذلة.
کسی که خدا را دارد از چه باید بترسد؟ شمایی که برای خدا بخواد کار بکنید از چه قدرتی میترسید؟ میترسید که شهید بشید؟ شهادت ترس دارد؟
ونريد أن نمن على الذين استضعفوا في الأرض ونجعلهم أئمة ونجعلهم الوارثين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. So dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. Tonight, brothers and sisters, inshallah, there are three areas that I'd like to touch on, albeit briefly. The first area is the unfortunate earthquake that took place, and many of our brothers and sisters unfortunately lost their lives, so a little bit about that. Then secondly, it's the anniversary, the 44th anniversary of the victory of the Islamic Republic. This time I'd like to address it from this side. What is our responsibility towards the revolution? We've talked about it in different ways before. Tonight, though, it will be more, what are we supposed to do? What is our duty? And that will mean that we need to talk a little bit about what is called the clarification jihad. And then finally, we'll continue with the lessons that we have started so long ago. So, brothers and sisters, as you remember, we are reading the book, Reclaiming the Narrative. Tonight, inshallah, if Allah gives tawfiq, at least briefly, we'd like to talk about the third condition for Quranic faith. Quranic faith has three conditions. Iman, if we want to know if we have Iman according to Quran, then Quranic faith has three conditions. The first one is going to be the chapter that we're addressing tonight, which is faith based on understanding, intellectual conviction. That's the chapter that inshallah we'll be trying to cover tonight, but we'll start with salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So as I mentioned, brothers and sisters, unfortunately all of us saw what happened to our brothers and sisters in Syria and in Turkey. And we can only imagine the difficulties that those believers are facing. Our hearts go out to them. It's the winter time, and the numbers they tell us are over 22,000 people dead. However many are they going to continue to pull out of the rubble? Even if they pulled you out of the rubble and you're still alive, let's say that was us, you and I, and we saw our family members, they were still there, how would we feel? So our hearts go out to them. We ask that Allah grant them relief, that He grant them patience, that He forgive those who went back to meet Him. We ask that Allah help all of them. Now, brothers and sisters, as you know, here in the Hadi Institute, we keep it 100%. So I came here prepared to roast the U.S. administration for not allowing humanitarian relief. I was that close. But then I found out that they said that they were going to allow 6 months of humanitarian relief. Because, I mean, it had just gotten to the stage that you're like, are you kidding me? It's not enough to steal their resources. It's not enough to launch subhuman terrorists and rip that country apart, destroy their infrastructure, and then now in the winter time, after an earthquake, punish people who want to help those people who are in relief. But they said now to save face, they decided to allow relief for 6 months, so inshallah people can now help without any sort of fear of being punished for helping those people who've lost their lives or who are suffering. So that's one point. The second point was that this is the 44th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution. And I just want to say congratulations to our entire Hadi family, each and every one of you mu'mineen and mu'minat who are here, our extended Hadi family, those who are watching online. In addition to them, the entire Ummah, our Maraja, our leader Imam Khamenei, and then last but not least, Sahib al-Zaman. Inshallah, many happy returns for each and every one of you. Brothers and sisters, sometimes we might need to kind of take a moment to realize how blessed we are, and I'll explain why. You and I, right now, we're watching a living miracle for 44 years. A living miracle for 44 years. Brothers and sisters, you and I, we've been over this verse many times. Allah in the Quran teaches us a principle. In order for the divine system to come into realization, two things need to happen. Allah says in the Quran, when He's talking about the assistance that He gives to our Prophet, He says, هُوَ الَّذِي أَيَّدَكَ بِنَصْرِهِ وَبِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ. He is the one who provided you assistance, that divine help, and He assisted you through the mu'mineen. Now just think about this, brothers and sisters. Our Prophet, after that jihad, and the jihad of those Muslims, those mu'mineen who were with him, was only able to keep the Islamic government for 10 years. After that, we all know what happened to the Islamic government. After that, Amirul Mu'mineen, with that stellar record, impeccable, everybody knows who he is, but the situation was much more complicated, and Amirul Mu'mineen was only able to keep the government for 5 years. And it was a struggle. After that, the situation was even more complicated in the time of Imam Hassan. For a few months, he was able to keep this going. Now, the enemy has 1,400 years of experience, and we don't have the infallible Imam, not physically with us. As great as Imam Khomeini is, and believe me, brothers and sisters, when they say that he literally, his contributions were closer to that of Anbiya than they were of that of ulama. Unique, unbelievable, Imam Khomeini. Arif, Faqih, Shuja, so many things. But still, a human being without that, and the enemy has that much more experience, and then to be able to lead a nation and the masses to stand with him. 10 years. Then after that, then under the capable leadership, the wise leadership of Imam Khamenei, again we see this continuing and advancing, not just surviving, advancing. This literally is a living miracle. Every time, inshallah, tomorrow you'll see when the masses will come out and they'll show you again, the people want this and they're making this happen. We're seeing that beautiful hadith that we saw that Imam Qadhim said. Imam Qadhim says this, Rajulun min ahli Qum. There will come a time when a man from the people of Qum, yad'un nas ila al-haq, he will call the people to truth. Yajtami'u ma'ahu qawmun kazubar al-hadid. And a group of people will stand with that man like pieces of iron. And that's what we've seen for 44 years, that kind of strength in the face of tyranny. But now, my question, brothers and sisters, is what's our job? Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to also, as normal, I kind of walk when we do the ayat of the Quran. We're going to be looking at the ayat of the Quran, even for this answer. So the question now is, what is our responsibility to the revolution? Do we have any taklif? We have been uniquely blessed to be alive watching Islam brought back to life, the time of victories. And also let me say this too before I begin. The resistance, the global resistance, which is preparing the grounds for the coming of the Imam, is stronger now than at any point in history. There are literally millions of mu'mineen and mu'minat in a state of readiness who have learned the lessons of what happened before with Sayyidah Fatima, what happened with Imam Hassan, what happened with Amirul Mu'mineen, all of these lessons, but still our Imam, Sahib al-Zaman, is not here. That means there's something we're supposed to do. So the question is, what are we supposed to do? So, brothers and sisters, what I'd like us to do is to first just turn to one of the noble verses of the Holy Quran. So this is Surah Baqarah, brothers and sisters. If you can turn to Surah number 2, Surah Baqarah, and verse number 141. Surah 2 and verse number 141. We're looking at our responsibility. Do we have a job? Now this first one is just a reminder. The verse, let's see, did everybody find the verse? Anybody? Sisters, anybody? Oh, wonderful. All right, let's look at the verse. Tilka ummatun qad khalat, laha ma kasabat, wa lakum ma kasabtum. That was an ummah. That was a nation. Imam Khomeini did his qiyam. Those people with Imam Khomeini did their qiyam. But they passed. Qad khalat. Laha ma kasabat. Whatever they earned, they got. What about us? Walakum ma kasabtum. What are we supposed to do? What we earn is what we're going to have. We're not just here to celebrate what happened. Now, what happens, brothers and sisters, is there's something which is known as the clarification jihad. So, brothers and sisters, there is a book that right now our brothers and sisters in AIM, they are working on the translation of this book, which talks in detail about what the clarification jihad is. Brothers and sisters who speak Arabic, they can also access the book right now. Those who speak Farsi can access the book right now and find out what it is that the leader expects from us. What is our job? What is our duty? Right now I'm going to summarize, but that book is being worked on. We will await it eagerly, and inshallah, once it's been translated, then inshallah we'll have it here in Hadi. The clarification jihad, brothers and sisters, is this. The enemy would like that certain realities are forgotten or I'm going to give a historical example, misconstrued, that the tyrant is replaced and he's made a hero. History is rewritten. Example, Karbala, after Karbala, the enemy had a massive campaign of misinformation. They wanted it to be something that ended in Karbala, that great qiyam, that sacrifice of Abu Abdullah, those women and children who were captured and prisoners, that event that saved Islam. They wanted it to be forgotten, misconstrued. Remember, this is something we've already studied. These are individuals who rose up against Amirul Mu'mineen Yazid. They were parading them. The daughters of the Prophet were going to be prisoners, slaves to be bought and sold. So the enemy would like that some great event, let's say something like the revolution, that happens and then it's forgotten. The heroes become enemies. Okay. What is our job though? We're going to do the opposite. Our job is to make sure that it's not the case. Right now, there are some people who, when they hear the name of Qasim Soleimani, the enemy is they tell bold-faced lies without any shame. They'll make the person who destroyed ISIS, he's a terrorist. They'll put so much fear in the hearts of the believers. A living hero like Ayatollah Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, people are afraid to say his name. What stops this? The clarification jihad. This is a lesson that we learn from Imam Sajjad and from Sayyida Zainab. They refuse to allow false narratives. They pushed back. They would clarify who was the enemy, who went against whom, where was the jihad, what was it like? Brothers and sisters, you and I, we're here very far from Iran. Why is it that every year we talk about the revolution, and we talk about it in details. We're not Iranians, but we talk about what happened. What happened during the imposed war? What happened now? This is just a general point. In order for events to remain, brothers and sisters, they need to be repeated and in detail. Repeated, again, Karbala. Why is it important to go over the story of Karbala? What happened? Analyze it again. Where did it start? What happened in Medina? Just say that Imam Hussein did it. Good enough. No. Details. So that it stays alive in the hearts of the believers. Now it's the same responsibility. Who's the enemy? Who's doing what? Why did the people rise up? Who was the Shah? What were the circumstances like? Is it possible for someone to stand without having anything in front of tanks? Is it possible for a nation that is being literally torn apart inside, Iran before the imposed war, being torn apart? They were trying to rip Iran in pieces. The people didn't have training. The army's been demolished. The leaders of the army have fled. Is it possible to resist with nothing against everybody? World War III, yes. Right? But we need to hear these things. We need to know these things. Right? So now the Quranic principle. This one, brothers and sisters, let's see if we can turn to Surah number 3. So Surah number 3, we're going to see a covenant that God took from the people of the book, and then we'll learn our Islamic responsibility. So let's see if we can turn to Surah 3, Surah Ali Imran, and turn to verse number 187. What is the covenant that God took from the people of the book? What are we supposed to do? Ayat of Quran. So, sisters, anybody have it? Okay. Brothers, anybody? Okay. Let's look at the verse. So it starts off, وَإِذْ. So remember, وَإِذْ أَخَذَ اللَّهُ. When Allah took مِيثَاقَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابِ. God took a covenant from those who had been given the book. A covenant. What did God want from them? What did God demand that they do? This is now with emphasis, God says. لَتُبَيَّنَنَّهُ لِلنَّاسِ. You will clarify for the people. You will explain for the people. You'll make it clear for the people. This is a battle to the death for the hearts and minds of the masses. We are concerned with misguidance. We won't just sit back, allow people to be misguided, and we sit by idly. We know the truth, alhamdulillah. No, we don't want anybody to be misguided. The verse continues. So one of the things God demands with emphasis, لَتُبَيِّنُنَّهُ لِلنَّاسِ. You will definitely make it clear for what's right, what's wrong for the masses. وَلَا تَكْتُمُونَهُ. And you won't conceal it. You've seen the video, definitely, of the leader saying, don't do taqiyya when it comes to the Islamic Republic. You won't conceal it. You'll explain, you'll talk, what's right, what's wrong, who's the dhalim, who's the madloom. So, brothers and sisters, the revolution, brothers and sisters, I said it's that unique blessing that we've been granted. It's also a divine amana. That leadership that we have, that unique leadership in Imam Khamenei, that's a divine amana. How many people in the Muslim world failed the test of the government of Ali? Imam Ali had a government. Amirul Mu'mineen had a government. Why did it fail? There were Muslims there. What didn't they do? Because you and I, when we go over history, it's not just, well, the door of Fatima in the past. I will cry my eyes out for the burning door of Fatima in the past. But I don't connect it to here. No, with us as believers, Where is the burning door of Fatima now? Where is, that's a continuum, the government of Amirul Mu'mineen now? I don't want to sit back and, yeah, if I was there in the time of Amirul Mu'mineen, you don't know, I would go loco. Well, if you're going to go loco right now, go loco. So that was a lesson that we learned from Sayyidah Zainab, from Imam Sajjad. We've got to explain. This is now that beautiful hadith from Imam Sajjad. Because we're going to also talk about, not from Imam Sajjad, from Imam Rida. We're going to also talk about the sunnah of Allah if we do push back. Let's say, mu'mineen and mu'minat, take this clarification job as a responsibility to connect the dots for people, to defend. Islamic concepts are being attacked. The Rasulullah, our symbol, our personality, our life, our love. Why can he be insulted? It only can happen if we allow that the masses not know, not understand. Otherwise, if we connect the dots for people, right? So, this is the promise now of Imam Rida. If we explain Islam unfiltered, we don't change Islam. Islam as is. The Imam promises us this. He says, Inna nas, truly the masses, Inna nas law alimu mahasina kalamina. If the masses, if the people knew the beauty of our words, lattabi'una, they would definitely follow us. So this is a battle for the hearts and minds of the masses. The idea is to learn Islam, to defend Islam, and to explain. One thing, though, that I should just make a little bit clear for all of us, we're not just defending. We're not backpedaling, trying to have a seat at the table. No, we're on the offensive. We're asking the questions. We're saying Islam is right, and we're asking the questions. Let's say, for instance, they want to go over and attack Islam on the basis of women are oppressed. For instance, there's one time when I'm just fighting back. Don't say women are oppressed, we're free. Another time we say, well, are women free in the West? Is this good? Do you like this? We're pushing back. We're explaining, we're defending, but not apologizing. And not having anybody talk down to us as Muslims. Now, the leader also, you'll see it later in the book, he does mention that when we are on social media, then it should not be the case, obviously, that we forget akhlaq, we just start shouting and screaming. That's obviously not what the mu'min or mu'mina does. Sometimes, unfortunately, you find when people are on social media, they talk to you in a way that they wouldn't talk to you in person. You are really rude. Even with text, it's different when you're talking face to face. So for us as mu'mineen and mu'minat, people who are representing Islam, logical answers. If we don't know what the answer is, find out, then explain, defend, right? And then we're also, inshallah, also on the offensive. Now, the next one that I'd like to explain is that sunnah of Allah. So what happens? What is the sunnah of Allah? If believers, mu'mineen and mu'minat, take it as a responsibility to push back. Instead of me being afraid, instead of me being intimidated, I take it as a challenge, as an honor to engage in the clarification jihad. All I needed was permission. In this stage, then Allah tells us again in the Quran. So brothers and sisters, if we can turn to verse number, so this would now be surah number 48. We're looking for the sunnah of Allah if we push back. What is the sunnah of Allah if we push back? So we'll turn to surah number 48. Let's see if I got the surah right. And verse number 22. 48, 22. Let's see if you have the same verse that I'm saying. Ready? وَلَوْ قَاتَلَكُمْ. Do y'all have that? All right. وَلَوْ قَاتَلَكُمُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. If those who disbelieve, if they engage with you, if they fight you, if it becomes you pushing and they push, if they do muqatila, what will happen? There's the promise of God. We can't be defeated. God says, لَوَلَّوُ الْأَدْبَارِ. They will turn their backs. You push forward, they go back. So the idea is with full confidence in Islam as is, learning the answers that we don't know. We might not know all the answers. We present Islam as is. That's why we're going over a book like Reclaiming the Narrative, so that we understand big picture Islam. But then it's not only for our personal benefit, we are also saying, well, what can I do to share with others? So we're learning it in that way. Now, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay, so brothers and sisters, now in your book, then we come to a chapter called Faith Based on Understanding. This is the first condition. There are 3 conditions for us to have Iman according to Quran. Every type of Iman, and it's in the lesson, is not accepted. Iman which is just tribal. These are my guys. Islam or faith which is blind. Those aren't acceptable, not valuable. In Islam, we're looking for something else, which is going to be faith based on understanding. So now we're going to go over one of the verses of the Quran, and we're going to try to get some messages from this verse. So this one, brothers and sisters, would be Surah Baqarah. So that's Surah number 2, and then verse number 285. So Surah 2, and then 285. The first lesson that we want to get is the importance of Quranic Iman. How lucky should we feel if we have those 3 conditions and we have Quranic Iman? So this is now a verse of the Quran. Does everybody follow along with me? Brothers and sisters, you have that, right? Surah Baqarah 285. Let's see if I have it correctly. Amana Rasul. Is that, y'all have that? Amana Rasul. The messenger, the Rasul believes. Amana Rasul bima unzila ilayh. He believes in that which has been revealed to him. Wal mu'minun. And all of the believers do as well. Now, the leader over here takes a very important point for all of us. Islam is a religion where those who are in a position to serve and lead believe in the cause more than anyone else. The Rasul believes. You see, sometimes talk is cheap. For some people, talk is cheap. They'll say anything because they don't believe it. It's not going to cost them anything. I heard a story, inshallah, it's not true. They said once there was a bandit, a Mexican bandit, and he was robbing banks in Tucson. And his name was Jose Rivera. And he robbed several banks in Tucson, then he fled over the border, and they sent a sheriff after him. And he was looking for this guy. And he caught up with him in a small town in Mexico. And he looked, he said, I think that's Jose Rivera, but he wasn't absolutely sure. So he went over to the owner of the restaurant, and he said that I'm looking for a man named Jose Rivera. I hear he hangs around here. And the guy was reading. So he looked up slowly and he said, you see that man sitting over there in the corner? He said, yeah. He said, that man is Jose Rivera. He said, but he doesn't speak English. The sheriff said, well, you do, so you come here with me. So he brought the man over to the guy and he said to his translator, ask him, are you Jose Rivera? So he looked at the man, the translator, and he said, the sheriff wants to know, are you Jose Rivera? And he said, yes, I am Jose Rivera, but what's it to you? So the translator turned back to the sheriff. He said, I am Jose Rivera, but what's it to you? The sheriff got upset. He took his gun out and he put it to the guy's head. And he said, tell Jose Rivera he's been robbing banks in Tucson. And if he doesn't tell me where he's buried that money, I'm going to blow his brains out. So the translator turned to Jose Rivera and he said, the sheriff said, you've been robbing banks in Tucson. And if you don't tell him where you've buried the money, he's going to blow your brains out. So Jose Rivera, he got really animated and worried. He said, tell him that if he goes outside, there's a huge tree, and it's not far from it is a well. If he walks 10 feet from the tree towards that well, I buried all the money in the ground. Go get the money and leave me alone. So he said, what did he say? And he said, Jose Rivera said, I want to die like a man. Sometimes talk is cheap. That's the opposite of the way of the Rasul. Amana Rasul. The Prophet believes. And the mu'mineen. That means the Prophet was someone, and this is an example for all of us. The Prophet believed harder in the cause than anyone else. Our examples are Ahlul Bayt. Amirul Mu'mineen, example, right? Amirul Mu'mineen is the first person to stand up to fight Amr bin Abdul Wud. He's the first person to leap in the trench after everybody runs to go and get Nawfal, Imam Ali, right? But if you look in Nahj al-Balagha, he says, when things got tough, we went to the Prophet for relief. Who believes harder than Ali? The Prophet. Right? The Prophet believes in everything that he said. And so with the Prophet, and for all of us, if we ever are in a position of responsibility and leadership, leadership is one where we're inviting, not telling others to do something. We believe, and then we invite others to it. So, when we look at our ayat of the Quran now, we see that the Prophet believed, and in order for the Prophet to establish the kingdom of God on the earth, the Prophet would first engage in building human pillars, one-on-one tabligh, human pillars. After that, they would create divine societies. And the prophets, because they believed, they would get their hands dirty. They would establish these divine systems, but they would get their hands dirty. Another verse of Quran. So, brothers and sisters, if you can turn now to Surah 3, Surah Ali Imran, Surah 3, and verse number 146. 3:146. The prophets, we learned, they believed, they also got their hands dirty. Let's see this verse of the Quran. It says, so everybody, let's see if I've quoted it correctly. وَكَأَيٍّ مِّن نَبِيٍّ. Do you have that? وَكَأَيٍّ. How many nabi? How many a prophet? وَكَأَيٍّ مِّن نَبِيٍّ قَاتَلَ مَعَهُ رِبِّيُّونَ كَثِيرٌ. The prophet would engage in the jihad, and alongside him, a multitude of godly individuals would be fighting as well. Some of our prophets were shuhada. They got their hands dirty. They believed. They believed in the cause more than any of their own followers. So now, salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Back to our ayat. So we're going back now to Surah Baqarah. Again, what are we talking about? Belief based on understanding, intellectual conviction. This is going to be necessary for the next steps, right? We're going to take this step by step. Then after that, God's going to expect things from us, okay? We'll go back to our verses. So we'll now go back to Surah Baqarah, and then we'll go back again to Surah number 285. 285. Allah's again describing for us, and these are lessons for us. So, about the prophets and those believers, kullun amana billah wa malaikatihi. Each and every one of those believers and the prophet himself believed in Allah, amana billah wa malaikatihi, and the angels, wa kutubih, and all of his books, wa rusulih, and all of his messengers. La nufarriqu bayna ahadim min rusulih. We would not place any distinction, any difference between any of the messengers. Another lesson from the Quran. In Islam, there's no picking and choosing. Islam is a package deal. We don't separate between any of the prophets. Now, back to our verse. The intellectual conviction is what we're looking for. So the believers would say this, قَالُوا, and they said, وَقَالُوا سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا. The believers heard, they said, they heard, we have heard and obeyed. Now, heard, brothers and sisters, doesn't mean I heard with my physical ears that I heard. Yeah, this is different. This is understanding. I've embraced the faith because I've thought about it. I understood it, and then after that, I obeyed. Then they make that all-important dua. We learned this before from the ayat of the Quran. The most important dua is the dua for forgiveness. So they continue, these same believers. غُفْرَانَكَ رَبَّنَا. Forgive us, our Lord, your forgiveness. وَإِلَيْكَ الْمَصِيرُ. And we're going back to you. So in Islam, Islam is here to awaken people, to get people to think. When Amirul Mu'mineen describes the responsibility of the Anbiya, it's not to put people to sleep. Islam is a different animal than other religions. It's to get people to think. Amirul Mu'mineen says this, the responsibility of the Anbiya was لِيُثِيرُ لَهُمْ دَفَائِنَ الْأُقُولِ, that they unearth for the people their buried intellects. We're getting people to think. It's not blind faith. It's faith based on understanding. Again, a verse of Quran, again, looking at the same concept. So this is now Surah number 12. Surah Yusuf. Again, the same concept. We're just proving to ourselves again and again, what is it that the Quran is teaching us? Surah number 12 and verse number 108. 12:108. So let's see if anybody finds it. All right. Anybody have it? Okay. Let's look at the verse together. God is instructing the Prophet. قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي. Say, this is my way. أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ. I call to God. I invite to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ala basira, with insight. Ana wa man ittaba'ani. I have insight, and all those who follow me also have insight. So it's different from that story that I heard. Inshallah, it's not true. They said once there were these 3 sisters, and they were very elderly. One was 92, one was 94, and one was 96, and they all lived in a house. And what happened was they were getting a little older, so the oldest one, she decided to go over and set a bath for herself, and then she was about to step into the tub, and then she was like, did I already take a bath yet, or am I about to take a bath? So the other sister heard her. She's like, oh my God. She started running up the stairs, but then she stopped and she said, wait, did I already go upstairs, or am I going up the stairs? And the last sister was looking at them. She said, I hope I never get that forgetful. She said, just to make sure, she said, knock on wood. She said, I'm coming to get you, but first I have to see who's at the door. So Islam is not that. This is insight. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? And part of the thing we're going to say later for deepening the faith, is to invite people to ponder over 2 things. I'm going to share some of the verses of Quran with you. To deepen so I start originally knowing that there is a God. Like, you would really have to be off to not know that there is a God. Actually, this is a little bit interesting. Let's say for children, because here in the Hadi Institute, we're saying is not only ourselves, but our future generations, so that we can train the soldiers of the Imam. Question: if our children are supposed to have intellectual conviction and supposed to know God, is it our first responsibility to prove to them that God exists? If I want my children to have deep faith, and I want it to be intellectual conviction, is my first job to prove to them that there's even a God? No. Actually, children, very small children, are close to their own fitrah. The fitrah knows very clearly that there's a God. This is interesting. You'll find this in the ayat of the Quran. When prophets, anbiya, are talking to mushrikeen, example, Surah Nuh. This is just one example. Surah Nuh. The people of Nuh, they don't believe in God. They're idol worshipers. These guys all over the place. The prophet talking to them, and he says, do istighfar to your Lord. He doesn't say, well, let me prove to you that there's, no. Everybody knows, unless you're really off, really confused, people know that there's a God. If we want to deepen the faith of the children, and also ourselves, two things, just right now. One of them, have an environment where the children don't have to witness sin on a daily basis. Make sure the children are not seeing, from us as parents, from us as those who are interacting with them, that we're not, they already have faith. They were born knowing God. If they don't witness sin and disobedience to Allah, if that happens in the first place, and then we make sure to introduce them to God as He is. There's books actually that have been written about this. How do we introduce Allah as He is? If we can do that, Allah as He is in the Quran, introduce God, the faith will get deepened. We invite people to ponder and deepen their faith. So when it comes to Islam, the idea that I don't just suffice with that original understanding, but rather I ponder, we talked about this last time, I ponder the verses of the Quran. Now what else? I'm just going to mention another verse that we have from the Quran, which is, it's not only the book of legislation that we ponder. This is now, again, let's go back to Surah 3, so Surah Ali Imran, and verse number 190. Ali Imran, Surah 3, verse number 190. So let's read this verse together. Let's see if I've got it right. Inna fi khalqis samawati wal ard. Is that correct? Sisters, y'all have that? Okay. Truly, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, واختلاف الليل والنهار, and the variations of the day and the night. The day comes, the night goes, right? What does God say in these things? لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ, are signs for who? For the intelligent. Brothers and sisters, some of us remember the discussion about taqwa. Taqwa was common sense, looking out for my real interest, not only my short-term interest, but also my long-term interest. A person with common sense, right? A person who thinks finds so many signs of God in the book of creation. Another way for us to work on deepening our own faith and the faith of our children is looking at the book of creation. So we want to make sure that we introduce Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He is. We make sure that we get exposure to the ahadith of Ahlul Bayt, and we work on understanding them. Hadith, which we'll end with, it says, Man dakhala fi hadha deen birrijal. Let's say instead of us using that faith which is based on me personally understanding and personally being convinced, I follow personalities. I'm a Muslim because my daddy's a Muslim. The hadith says, whoever enters this religion because of people, أخرجه منه الرجال كما أدخلوه فيه. The same way that people brought him in, people will bring him out. What about if a person enters with understanding, with pondering the Quran, with pondering the ahadith? The hadith says, وَمَنْ دَخَلَ فِيهِ, the person who enters into Islam, بِالْكِتَاب, with the book, the Quran, وَالسُّنَّةِ, pondering over the ahadith, زَالَتِ الْجِبَالِ قَبْلَ أَنْ يَزُولِ, mountains will move before this individual moves. So brothers and sisters, we're going to stop here now. We have 1 minute left on the clock. I don't know if there are any questions. Otherwise, if there are not questions, brothers and sisters, please do join us for the meals. It is wonderful. All of us appreciate it. Just being able to see other brothers and sisters, to be able to break bread together. I will encourage this as well, brothers and sisters. Instead of us only sitting with our friends and our homies, right? There might be some people we're already more comfortable with. What about if we reach out and make sure any new face, we also sit with that person, talk to that person, welcome that person. Now, I don't know, are there any questions? No, there aren't any questions, so we end with salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Inshallah, like Shaykh said, we hope everybody will join us. Before, we're going to have Ja'far recite recitation of Dua al-Hujjah. If we could all join him. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم قل لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا وذليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
Hassan Ja'far. If we could have the brothers please stay back. We're going to have the sisters go first. And we ask the sisters, inshallah, if you want to talk and speak with others, we could do that downstairs. That way the brothers could come down. So if you could do that soon, inshallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم